This is a story about a man who had everything and lost it all. It is a story about being completely alone, with nothing but your own hands and your own mind to keep you alive. This is the story of Robinson Crusoe. It begins in England, where a young man named Robinson Crusoe lived with his family. His father was a good man who wanted a safe and comfortable life for his son. He said, "Robinson, do not go to sea. It is a dangerous life. Stay here, become a lawyer, and you will be happy." But Robinson did not want a safe life. He dreamed of adventure. He looked at the ships in the harbor and imagined visiting strange and distant lands. The sea was calling to him, and he could not ignore it. So one day, against his father's wishes, he ran away from home and joined the crew of a ship. His first journey was a disaster. A terrible storm almost sank the ship, and a terrified Robinson promised that if he survived, he would go home. But as soon as the sun came out, he forgot his promise. The call of adventure was too strong. On his next voyage, his ship was attacked by pirates from the coast of North Africa. Robinson was captured and taken to the city of Sallee, where he was sold as a slave. For 2 long years he was a prisoner, dreaming of freedom. Finally he saw his chance. He and another young slave, a boy named Jury, escaped in a small fishing boat. They sailed down the coast of Africa for many days, until they were rescued by a kind Portuguese sea captain. The captain took them to Brazil. There Robinson Crusoe started a new life. He bought land and became a successful sugar plantation owner. He worked hard and became very rich. He had a safe, comfortable life, the exact life his father had wanted for him. But the quiet life was not for him. The spirit of adventure was still in his heart. He and some other plantation owners decided to go on a secret and illegal journey to Africa, to buy slaves for their plantations. Robinson, with his experience at sea, agreed to go. This decision, born from greed, would change his life forever. They set sail for Africa. For 12 days the weather was good. But then a hurricane hit their ship. The storm was a monster of wind and waves. For days the ship was thrown around in the violent sea. The men were helpless. Finally, the ship hit a sandbank and began to break apart. The men got into a small lifeboat, but a giant wave overturned it, and they were all thrown into the raging water. Robinson was a strong swimmer. The waves carried him and pushed him towards the shore. He was bruised and half drowned, but he managed to crawl onto the beach. He looked out at the sea. There was no sign of the ship or any of his friends. He was the only survivor. He was alive, but he was completely and utterly alone. He did not know where he was. He had no food, no water, and no weapon. That night he climbed a tree to sleep, afraid of wild animals. The next morning the sea was calm. He saw that the wrecked ship had been pushed closer to the island by the storm. This was his chance. He swam out to the wreck and climbed aboard. He found food, tools, guns, gunpowder, rope, sails, and wood. He built a small raft and began to carry these precious supplies to the shore. For 13 days he worked, making 12 trips back and forth, saving everything he could before the ship was finally broken apart by another storm and disappeared beneath the waves. Now his real work began. He had to build a life from nothing. First, he needed a safe place to live. He found a small cave on the side of a hill and built a strong fence around it, creating a small fortress. He used the sails from the ship to make a tent inside his fortress. He needed a way to keep track of time, so he made a large wooden cross. Every day he cut a line into the wood. This was his calendar. He did not want to forget the days of the week or the months or the years. At first he survived by hunting wild goats with the guns he had saved from the ship. But he knew his gunpowder would not last forever. So he built a trap and caught some wild goats. He tamed them and kept them in a field. Soon he had his own flock of goats, which gave him a constant supply of meat and milk. One day he found a small bag from the ship. He shook out the last few grains of dust and corn that were inside. He had forgotten about it. But months later he saw new plants growing in that spot. It was barley and rice. He carefully saved the seeds and planted them again and again. After 4 years of hard work, he had enough grain to make his own bread. Life was hard, but it was a life he had built himself. He learned how to make pottery to hold his food and water. His first attempts were ugly and weak, but he kept trying until he succeeded. He built a table and a chair so he could eat his meals like a civilized man. He explored the whole island and found it was a beautiful place with fresh fruit and clean water. But he was deeply lonely. For years he did not hear another human voice. To keep his mind sharp, he talked to his dog who had also survived the wreck. He caught a young parrot and taught it to speak. The parrot, whose name was Poll, was his only real companion. Hearing the parrot say his name, poor Robinson Crusoe, was a great comfort to him. He also found a Bible among the things he had saved. He read it every day and became a deeply religious man. He saw his survival not as a punishment, but as a chance to live a good and simple life. For 15 years, Robinson Crusoe lived like this, alone but content. He had accepted his fate, but one day everything changed. He was walking on the beach when he saw something that made his blood run cold. There in the sand was a single human footprint. It was not his footprint. He ran back to his fortress, filled with terror. He was not alone on the island anymore. Who did the footprint belong to? Was it a friend or an enemy? For 2 years, he lived in constant fear, never leaving the safety of his home. He made his fortress even stronger. One day he discovered the terrible truth. He saw smoke from a fire on another part of the island. He crept closer and saw a group of cannibals. They were savages from another island, and they had prisoners with them. They were having a terrible feast on the beach. Robinson was horrified. He learned that these cannibals would visit his island from time to time to kill and eat their captives. He knew he had to do something. He planned and waited. One day, the cannibals returned with 2 prisoners. They killed one, but the other prisoner suddenly broke free and started running towards Robinson's fortress. 3 cannibals were chasing him. This was Robinson's chance. He took his guns, ran out, and attacked the pursuers. He killed 2 of them and frightened the 3rd one away. The rescued prisoner was a young man. He was terrified but also incredibly grateful. He came to Robinson and placed Robinson's foot on his head, a sign that he would be his servant forever. Robinson took the young man back to his home. Because he had saved him on a Friday, he decided to call him Friday. Robinson was no longer alone. He had a friend. He taught Friday to speak English. He taught him about his religion. Friday was a quick learner, loyal, and a good friend. For the first time in many years, Robinson Crusoe had a companion to talk to. They were happy together. They built a new, bigger boat, hoping one day they could sail to Friday's home island. Before they could leave, another group of cannibals arrived. This time Robinson and Friday attacked them and rescued 2 more prisoners. To their great surprise, one of the prisoners was a Spaniard, and the other was Friday's own father. The small colony on the island was now 4 people. The Spaniard told Robinson that there were other shipwrecked Europeans on Friday's island, and they decided to build a bigger ship to rescue them all. But before they could finish, another ship appeared. It was an English ship. Robinson was filled with joy. After 27 years, he thought he was finally saved. But the men coming to shore were not friendly. It was a mutiny. The sailors had taken control of the ship and were leaving their captain and 2 other loyal officers on the island to die. Robinson realized what was happening. He and Friday approached the captain and offered to help him. Using his knowledge of the island and his guns, Robinson created a plan. He and his friends tricked and fought the mutineers. They successfully took back control of the ship. The grateful captain offered to take Robinson and Friday back to England. Robinson Crusoe finally left the island, where he had spent 28 years, 2 months, and 19 days. He returned to England to find that his family thought he was long dead. He was a stranger in his own country, but he also discovered that his plantation in Brazil had been managed well, and he was now an extremely wealthy man. He had survived slavery, a shipwreck, and decades of isolation. He had built a life with his own 2 hands, and his spirit had never been broken. Robinson Crusoe had left England searching for adventure, and he had found more than he could ever have imagined. He had learned the true meaning of fear, loneliness, hard work, and friendship. He was a survivor,